Kaned, known for his handsome looks at the school heartthrob level, unfortunately got stuck with a forced choice system in his mind, turning him into the most disliked person on campus. This year, Kaned entered junior high. Originally, he was a super handsome guy with a gentle and considerate personality. Although he occasionally had some minor issues typical of adolescent boys, such as noticing a pornographic magazine fallen by the roadside, he felt embarrassed to pick it up directly as a high school student. Thus, he waited for the wind to flip the cover. Kaned thought he had won over the situation, but suddenly, numerous options popped up in his mind, demanding that he either pick up the book and press his face against it to take a deep breath or directly eat the magazine. Without making a choice, Kaned would suffer a splitting headache. Thus, a passing elementary school student saw Kaned looking like a pervert, crawling to pick up the porn magazine and then taking a deep breath with a relieved smile. The student mocked him, calling him a virgin. It wasn't the first time this issue had appeared for Kaned. Choices are actions all organisms make. The success of one's life depends on whether the right path has been chosen. Human progress also evolves through constant choices. History itself is the result of human decisions. Over 3.8 billion years, life on Earth has constantly been making choices, and now, a young man is facing such a decision. Kaned is considered one of the most handsome men around, and the neighboring aunt has a soft spot for him. Kaned is nervous every day when he leaves the house and greets Yukihira, his classmate, at school. Yukihira always answers Kaned's questions but calls him Stinky Maggot. Yukihira mentioned today's fortune was related to bugs, so he used this nickname to ward off bad luck. Yukihira is interested in bugs and often shares bug-related puns with Kaned, who usually doesn't get them. At this moment, the choice system popped up again. Kaned was forced to say two sentences to Yukihira. "Can I touch your chest?" or "Can you touch my chest?" Both options were socially disastrous, but not choosing would cause a headache. Biting the bullet, he chose the second option. The whole class turned around in shock. Yukihira thought he was making a cold joke and explained it to everyone, causing people to look at them strangely. Although Yukihira tried to help Kaned out, the system didn't let him off and made Kaned repeat the two sentences as Yukihira understood them. Helpless, Kaned had to ask Yukihira again if he could touch his chest. Yukihira quietly returned to his seat saying, "Sorry, I don't want to communicate with someone who speaks such vulgar words." At that moment, another beautiful girl, Uka, suddenly climbed through the window, explaining that the homeroom teacher was catching people below, so she had to climb in. "Isn't there a single normal person in this school?" Uka had to avoid the homeroom teacher because she brought a large bag of samples, all bearing the UOG Corporation logo. Uka is the daughter of the owner of a large conglomerate. Among the samples she brought is a drink named Female Werewolf, claimed to boost women's vitality. This morning, Uka added some to her mother's drink. After consuming it, her mother asked Uka if she wanted a little sister. Her mother used to be an idol, but now she's a journalist. She even has a toy that can create counterfeit-like money. Kaned joked that if this toy were to get out, it would be a disaster. Uka also brought candies with a maggot flavor, forcing Yukihira and Kaned to eat them. She mentioned that the candies were made with maggot juice, causing Yukihira and Kaned to vomit immediately. The other students quickly distanced themselves from the trio. At that moment, Kaned's choice system popped up again, asking him to either scream shirtless or roar like an Amazon warrior with his pants off. If he didn't choose, he would get a headache. Reluctantly, Kaned took off his shirt, lamenting his social death on the first day in his new class. However, his classmates were already used to their antics, considering the trio abnormal. They were known as the 5 blacklisted households by the school, with 2 more students as eccentric as them. Thus, shirtless Kaned ran to the office where he was caught by the teacher Ms. Duraku. She knew about the system forcing him to make choices and warned that he might be expelled if it continued. Kaned could only ask Duraku, who knew about his situation, for help. She promised to cover for him as much as possible. Kaned quickly went to put his clothes back on before someone decided to burn them. On the first day of high school, Kaned was exhausted. On his way home, he was eyed by the neighboring aunt, and the system forced him to ask her to hug him, with both options being the same. Kaned almost got strangled by the aunt. Then, the system gave him a choice between a beautiful girl falling from the sky or the aunt falling down. Naturally, Kaned chose the first option. Surprisingly, a blonde beauty really fell from the sky and knew his name, claiming she came to save Kaned. Kaned's parents were not home, and the blonde beauty naturally moved into his house, acting as if she belonged there, making Kaned wonder if he was the guest. He prepared food and asked her name, but she couldn't remember it, indicating she had lost some memories. Later, Kaned discovered that the girl loved chocolate. Teasing her with chocolate, her behavior resembled that of a golden retriever, a dog-like girl, although dogs shouldn't eat chocolate. Since she loved chocolate, she suggested naming herself Chocolate after the French pronunciation. Kaned asked Chocolate what she was here for. She replied that she came to lift a curse from him. Kaned immediately thought of the choice system in his mind and asked how to get rid of it. Chocolate said she came to help but didn't know the exact method, as only a deity could assist. Just then, a god called Kaned on the phone. Kaned quickly answered it. On the other side, a male voice claimed to be a god. Kaned felt this setup was rather casual and wondered if the person on the other end was playing a prank on him. Immediately, the god demonstrated his power by transforming Kaned's testicles into 2 steamed buns on his chest. Kaned was shocked. The choice system asked him whether he wanted to become a gender-swapped girl or to stand on his head and demand his brother's back. Kaned chose to stand on his head and asked the god to change him back promptly. The god agreed. After being restored, Kaned asked how to remove the choice system. The god told him that completing tasks would suffice and that the first task would be sent soon. The god admitted he wasn't very familiar with the curse system, as he had taken over suddenly when his predecessor went on maternity leave and did not fully transition the duties. However, he assured Kaned that he had sent an excellent assistant. Looking at Chocolate, who was frantically eating bananas next to him, Kaned doubted the reliability of this arrangement. Yet, the god emphasized the importance of the task, warning Kaned that failing even once would trap him with the system forever. The god then hung up, leaving Kaned to complain about the unreliability. Kaned asked Chocolate what she knew, but she admitted her mind was empty enough to echo. Just as Kaned was about to kick this useless creature out, the system forced him to choose. Either keep Chocolate, who would live off him without contributing, or kick himself out. Kaned tearfully decided to keep the beautiful but useless Chocolate. Kaned went to school and saw Yukihira walking ahead. He then received his first task from the god, to make Yukihira show a genuine smile by May 8th. Although Yukihira often smiled, it was usually sarcastic, and Kaned had never seen her truly happy. That day, Kaned began acting crazy in class. Since receiving the task, he had been pondering how to make Yukihira laugh. The system then forced him to choose: either imitate a pig zoink 10 times at the classroom podium, or have the neighboring ant appear naked in the classroom while he engaged in embarrassing play, also naked. Kaned immediately chose the former. Yukihira commented that his pig imitation was unconvincing. Kaned lied, saying he was playing on a joke Yukihira made that morning about him resembling a pig. Yukihira accused Kaned of stealing her idea, calling for a judge to decide. Uka happened to pass by and took on that role, sentencing Kaned to death. Kaned was already struggling to understand these three's train of thought. It felt as if he were insane. His classmates also criticized the trio as being crazy. If not for the choice system in his mind, Kaned would be reluctant to interact with these 2 madcaps, though to outsiders, he seemed no less mad himself. At that moment, Ms. Duraku arrived, nearly causing Kaned's demise. After waking up, Kaned found himself in the office. Ms. Duraku revealed that she had also been cursed by the choice system in the past. Otherwise, she would have become a gentlewoman like a Yamato Nadeshiko, rather than the twisted lowly she is now. Kanade looked doubtful and was almost beaten up by teacher Duraku. He quickly explained that he had found a girl who fell from the sky the day before. Duraku suspected that the system had messed up his brain, causing him to have delusions about beautiful girls. This startled Duraku, who then asked Kanade if he had received a task from the god. She mentioned that the god and his subordinates were odd, always assigning bizarre tasks that could not be undone if failed. During class, Kanade couldn't help but steal glances at Yukihira. He thought she was quite demure when silent, but her speech was far from normal. After returning home, Chocolate pinned Kanade on the couch and tickled him, suggesting he use this method on Yukihira. She even mastered 48 tickling techniques. Kanade promptly threw the book away. The next day was the deadline for his task. Kanade was determined to make Yukihira laugh, But his lame jokes were no help and were criticized by Yukihira for being subpar. After trying various methods to make her laugh, which only succeeded in amusing Uka, Yukihira remained indifferent and coldly headed to the rooftop. Kanade took out the tickling book Chocolate gave him, thinking of using this last resort. He followed her to the rooftop, only to find Yukihira kneeling and crying. While crying, Yukihira muttered that Kanade was also weird, questioning why someone would suddenly shout about touching breasts or strip down to imitate a pig. She mentioned his strange jokes today and expressed a desire to communicate normally with Kanade. Caught off guard, Kanade had to remind her of his presence. At the sight of Kanade, Yukihira screamed. While unconscious, Kanade dreamt of male copper comics. Waking up, he felt he had dreamt of something strange, but couldn't remember because Yukihira had learned a 5-minute amnesia technique from Duraku. Recalling his important task, Kanade reached for the tickling book, but instead pulled out a banana that Chocolate had stuffed in his bag. Accidentally stepping on the banana, he slid past Yukihira. Unexpectedly, this made Yukihira burst into laughter. As she laughed uncontrollably, the system's options before Kanade disappeared. He then received a text from the god congratulating him on completing his first task, with the next one on its way. Watching Yukihira roll on the floor laughing, Kanade suddenly felt his morning antics were like a joke. The next morning, Kanade found Chocolate back in bed, still dreaming about Kanade being pushed down by someone named Natsuhiko. Realizing belatedly, Kanade remembered the bizarre male copper dream, suspecting Chocolate's mischief behind it. Soon after, Kanade received a new task to look at Kanagi's panties, making him sweat profusely. Encountering Yukihira in the hallway, he remembered her crying on the rooftop yesterday, only to be knocked out by her the next second. Waking up, he saw Uka running towards him, followed by the delicate girl who was the target of this task, Konagi. Konagi accidentally fell, almost revealing her underwear, but just missed it. At that moment, Kanade did not realize the seriousness of the situation. Suddenly, Konagi felt hungry and a bit embarrassed, speaking in a soft, cute voice. This made Kanade, used to dealing with eccentric girls, feel uncomfortable. Konagi mentioned that Uka often talked about Kanade because of his talent for mimicking pig sounds, almost breaking his defenses. Konagi and Uka have been close friends in the same class since last year. Kanade found it hard to proceed with such a gentle and well-behaved girl. However, the selection system popped up, asking him to see Konagi's panties. He reluctantly followed the instruction and was severely beaten by Konagi's guards, as her naturally clueless personality made her very popular at school. Kanade was surprised that gentle Konagi was friends with Uka, one of the 5 dark members at school, chosen through a vote for their outstanding looks but problematic personalities, making them unpopular for relationships. Uka was ranked first, Kanade second, and Yukihira third, with 2 other eccentrics yet to appear. Kanade believed his inclusion among these 5 was a mistake by the selection system. He honestly told Uka that he needed to see Konagi's panties by Saturday, the 11th. Uka criticized him, saying, "How can you say such a thing so seriously?" Kanade insisted he had no lewd intentions. Uka retorted that his desire to peek made him a pure pervert. At that moment, Konagi approached, saying it was the first time a boy had made such a request. Although embarrassed, Konagi felt panties should only be shown to someone special. Kanade felt terrible and immediately apologized. Konagi did not plan to blame him, but then the selection system popped up again. Tears and blood streaming, Kanade followed the system's prompt, asking Konagi when she could show him her panties. The next second, he was taken away by the guards, who also noted his shapely buttocks. It remained unclear what exactly happened to Kanade that day. Later, Uka told Kanade that he seemed unnatural and uncomfortable with his actions. She noted Konagi's vulnerability to men, and thought seeing her panties shouldn't be a big issue. Kanade felt it was wrong to disappoint such an innocent girl. Uka suggested exploiting Konagi's clueless nature by going out together, waiting for her to accidentally fall and reveal her panties. Chocolate, hearing this, gave Kanade a guidebook filled with unethical tactics, appearing as a pervert's autobiography. Kanade slammed the book to the ground. On Saturday, bystanders saw a high-looking trio. Unaware 2 were eccentrics. To help Kanade, Uka even picked a very short skirt for Konagi. Konagi is gentle and incredibly nice. Uka often brings up the topic of panties and even tricks Konagi into believing that interacting with boys can reveal their preferences for panties. Believing this, Konagi asks Kanade what type he likes, and he blurted out, "suspender panties," drawing attention from passers-by, who think he's a pervert despite his handsome face. The system gives Kanade a choice. Demand that Konagi wear suspender panties to serve him, or wear them himself to demonstrate their superiority. Thinking the first option might get him arrested, Kanade chooses the latter, risking only being called a pervert. If Kanade completes the task of seeing Konagi's panties today, the system will temporarily disappear, and he won't have to wear the suspender panties. However, every time Konagi almost has a wardrobe malfunction, mysterious beams of light or objects block the view. Later, as Konagi falls asleep on the sidewalk and Uka goes to buy drinks, Kanade sees an opportunity to lift her skirt. The system asks him to choose to lift the skirt or not. Tempted but remembering Konagi is a good person, Kanade decides not to cross his moral line, even to complete a task. Just then, a robber snatches a bag and runs by. Kanade fights to protect Konagi, and Uka, coming out of a convenience store, kicks the robber away. This reveals the suspender panties, which turn out to be a pair Kanade sees on Uka, as she and Konagi had previously exchanged panties. Days later, Chocolate transfers to Kanade's class. Kanade wants her to leave, but Chocolate claims they are now in a relationship, causing curious glances from classmates. The system then offers Kanade a chance to start a harem life by letting a popular student confess to him, an option he gladly accepts. Chocolate, with her cute personality, quickly becomes popular and receives snacks from many classmates. Meanwhile, Kanade looks forward to his supposed harem life. Yukihira suspects something inappropriate between Chocolate and Kanade, and inappropriately touches Chocolate, claiming Kanade does it daily. Chocolate says Kanade snuck into her room and pinched the softest part of her body, which was actually her cheek, as he tried to wake her up. The misunderstanding makes everyone think Kanade is a pervert. At that moment, another Kanade climbed in through the window, but the voice was Uka's. Uka explained that this was their family's new invention. Chocolate excitedly stated that this invention was revolutionary, allowing them to see Kanade's narcissistic antics. Kanade quickly ripped off Uka's mask. They made eye contact and Uka immediately blushed. This reminded Kanade of the incident last Saturday when he accidentally saw Uka's panties. Surprisingly, Uka was pretending and claimed she had switched to sports panties, unbothered by being seen. Kanade reflected on the morning's drama. The choice system usually offered two options, both bad and worse. However, the two seemingly good options that morning had never occurred before. Just then, someone knocked on the bathroom stall where Kanade was thinking. The person hesitantly said they needed to speak with him. Realizing he was in the men's restroom, Kanade opened the door, only to be pushed inside by a pretty boy. This pretty boy was well known among the school's girls and was highly popular. It turned out not all names on the whitelist were girls. This guy clung to Kanade, wanting a relationship, which made Chocolate jealously bite her snack. More boys from the whitelist confessed to Kanade, all of them male. Kanade nearly lost his chastity, but luckily hid at Duraku's place. Duraku explained that these people would forget everything after the option ended. Bound by a confidentiality agreement, Duraku couldn't reveal the cursed details, which would cause him a headache if disclosed. Although Duraku had lifted his curse by completing tasks, he could not share everything with Kanade. Duraku suggested the messenger sent by the deity might help, as his had been reliable. Back home, Kanade and Chocolate ate snacks together. When an unreliable deity called, Kanade hung up and turned off his phone. However, as a deity, they could still meddle using their powers. The deity admitted their power couldn't solve everything immediately, like lifting a curse, but they could turn the sexy photos in Kanade's folder into bugs. Kanade thought this deity was truly divine. The deity mentioned the curse seemed like a rule imposed on humans. The previous deity at home hadn't figured it out, leaving a mess for the current one. The deity said they needed to handle a bomb in another universe and asked Kanade to wait. Looking down, Kanade noticed only one cookie was left, but he couldn't be upset with Chocolate. She always smiled happily. Kanade told her such behavior should only be for someone she liked, to which Chocolate replied she did like Kanade a lot, more each day. Kanade's face turned red immediately, reminding himself that Chocolate was just a dog in human skin. He recalled Duraku asking why he let Chocolate eat and drink for free, a question Kanade had never really thought about before. The cultural festival at school was approaching. The classmates discussed what activities to undertake. Yukihira and Uka proposed some strange activities, which the event committee actually recorded. Chocolate suggested that the boys in the class wrestle in swimsuits, and upon hearing this request from a beautiful girl, the boys immediately agreed without hesitation. At that time, the most handsome guy on the school's whitelist, Shishimori, came looking for Kanade and called the class teacher Duraku boss lady. Shishimori wanted to talk to Kanade, but was quickly subdued by Yukihira and Uka. Then, the top-ranked girl on the whitelist, Seira, appeared and invited Kanade and 2 others to a competition. This competition would feature 5 men and women from both the popular whitelist and the shunned blacklist competing one-on-one on stage. The whitelist had already selected their 5 participants, and the blacklist side included Kanade, a senior from the 3rd grade, and 1 member who had been deceived by Seira. When Seira saw Chocolate, she complimented her as looking more like a beautiful doll than a human, which made Kanade frown. At that moment, he received a new task: to have all the female participants in the competition tell him they liked him. Kanade was astounded. Having those girls say they liked him seemed impossible, and they still needed to find the last blacklist participant. At that moment, Kanade noticed Chocolate mixing natto and realized that liking someone doesn't necessarily mean romantic love. It could also be platonic. Thus, he quickly asked Uka if she liked or disliked him, to which Uka responded that she liked him. Kanade immediately received a notification that he had passed the task. Next, Kanade asked Yukihira whether she liked or disliked him from a human perspective. Yukihira, shocked to learn Kanade was human, hesitated, and awkwardly said she disliked him after much struggle. Kanade sighed, knowing the task wouldn't be easy. In the hallway, Kanade saw Chocolate being fed snacks when a pink-haired girl, Yuragi, emerged from the crowd, calling him brother. They were childhood friends, but Yuragi had moved abroad with her family. However, there were no suitable high schools too far away in Africa, so Yuragi returned alone. She hadn't expected to meet Kanade here. Yuragi, who loved pretending to be a little sister and would affectionately call anyone brother or sister, immediately won Chocolate over. After being fed snacks by Yuragi, Chocolate promptly mentioned they were looking for the last member on the blacklist. Yuragi was puzzled, as Kanade was very popular in middle school, but ended up on the blacklist in high school. Kanade felt like crying, as no one could have anticipated being subjected to a choice system. At that moment, the system presented options: either to act as a cold-hearted jerk who speaks recklessly, or to cry while incessantly bothering the girls. Kanade chose the former. Kanade stated that people change. He believed Yuragi, being young, would not be satisfied with him, and took this opportunity to claim that the school's girls had all been abandoned by him, leading them to hold grudges and blacklist him. Unexpectedly, Yuragi found Kanade's attitude cool, perhaps signaling a strange new preference in herself, willingly becoming his submissive follower. The two became inseparable. Meanwhile, Yukihira pulled Kanade aside for a private conversation. Just then, Uka rushed over, mentioning she had encountered a talent outside. He had been staring at the students in the classroom, and upon approaching him, she learned he was a pervert who had bought a school uniform and was chased away by a teacher. Kanade lamented missing a potential blacklist member, calling him a pure pervert. Suddenly, Yuragi appeared, calling Kanade brother. Uka teased Kanade for being a sister complex. Yuragi then began her own plan, successfully addressing Uka and Yukihira as big sister. She expressed her desire to join the competition, which Kanade immediately refused. When Yuragi asked if Kanade disliked her, he nodded without hesitation, causing Yukihira to frown. Then, Yuragi got overly close to Kanade. Yukihira spoke up, questioning if such behavior was appropriate in public. Yuragi retorted, asking if Yukihira was jealous. Yukihira said she had no interest in smelly boys. Shocked, Kanade wondered if he really smelled. Yukihira hesitated as Chocolate sniffed him from behind, and Uka quickly joined in. Kanade noticed that Yukihira seemed genuinely upset. He thought she would join the trio, but instead, she punched him in the stomach, claiming her fist and his stomach seemed magnetically attracted. Kanade found this absurd as onlookers whispered amongst themselves. Meanwhile, Yuragi and her group formed a new squad, which Kanade thought was equally absurd. Later, Seira organized a meeting for the 5 members of both the Blacklist and Whitelist. The Whitelist members had all arrived. Karasu, a senior supposed to stand by Kanade, was missing because Shishimori had failed to secure him. In the 5v5 competition, each pair would participate in an event. Ayame from the Whitelist suddenly raised her hand, announcing she had already prepared the list of matches. Shishimori would lead, followed by Konagi, then Ayame with her impressive figure. Fourth was the second-ranked boy Tuya, and Seira would close the event. Kanade was distracted by Ayame's chest. Ayame also revealed that Yukihira was jealous of her larger bust. Being one of the crazies, Yukihira grabbed Ayame's chest directly. Threatened by the choice system, Kanade could only shout, "Ayame, stop this pointless quarrel." Yuragi thought Kanade was extremely handsome and liked him very much. Then Kanade completed another mission, and Yuragi declared herself the sister of the whole world. Hearing the word sister made Shishimori's scalp tingle because he already had 5 sisters at home. Surprisingly, Yuragi could also play other roles, which overwhelmed Shishimori. He asked Kanade why he chose such a crazy person as a teammate, and Kanade admitted he didn't understand either. At that time, Chocolate entered the office. Tuya fell in love with her at first sight, commenting on the questionable mental state of the Whitelist members. Seira wanted everyone to rest, but the choice system popped up again, demanding Kanade make all the girls present say they liked him or make them fall in love with him. The latter was too demanding, so Kanade chose the socially deadly former option, making the task of being liked even harder. So far, only Uka and Yuragi liked Kanade. Chocolate tried to offer strategies, but they were unreliable. The next morning, Yukihira teased Kanade about juggling 6 girls and stated she would never say she liked him. Surprisingly, Uka had already said it. Hearing this, Yukihira left the classroom, devastated. Yukihira envied Uka and others for bravely expressing their liking for Kanade. Meanwhile, Kanade was considering the easiest targets among the remaining 4, settling on the gentlest and most approachable Konagi. Classmates thought Kanade was a creep, especially since he had been forcing unrelated girls to call him brother. Feeling his reputation was harmed, Kanade asked Konagi out to talk alone, expressing how despised he felt every day and wishing for a girl to say she liked him, just to give him the courage to continue living. Kanade asked Konagi if she liked or disliked him. Konagi, being very kind, was nearly ready to answer, but Kanade underestimated the speed of the guards, resulting in him being beaten up. He complained that the guards were no better, noting they even gave Konagi panties as per divine instructions. Konagi, tired of the strange boys always bullying those who spoke to her, also expressed that Kanade was a kind person and said she liked him, not in a romantic way, but as a friend. Despite being despised and scorned daily for his abstract games and never getting angry, Konagi wanted Kanade to cheer up. Although it was just an excuse for the mission, Kanade felt guilty about deceiving Konagi, and then he was beaten up again by the returning guards. After completing his goal with Konagi, Kanade decided to go against the flow and seek out Ayame, who had the best figure and was the most arrogant. Ayame, a high-class lady, was actually a bit of a sadist. To her, boys were only fit to be chairs. The excuses Kanade used on Konagi were useless on her. Ayame said she would only respond if Kanade kneeled and begged. Because this was in a public setting, Kanade was thought to maintain his dignity. However, for the sake of the mission, he immediately knelt down, which surprised the onlookers. Ayame couldn't outright refuse him under these circumstances. Suddenly, Kanade's choice system popped up, revealing Ayame's secret, that her impressive bust was actually enhanced with silicone pads. Ayame was shocked by the exposure and quickly pulled Kanade aside. "You wouldn't want your secret exposed, right?" Kanade replied. Surprisingly, Ayame unbuttoned her shirt, accusing Kanade of using the secret to molest her. Kanade denied this, saying he just wanted her to lie and say she liked him. Ayame was shocked again by Kanade's taste for such dramatic scenarios. Left with no choice, Ayame admitted she liked him. Kanade felt a sudden, intense vibration in his groin. It was a message from the gods, indicating progress in his mission. Ayame didn't understand why Kanade did it. He pointed out that she often maintained a tsundere attitude because her childhood friend liked her that way. During their argument, Ayame's strap snapped, and Kanade couldn't help but have a nosebleed. Back in the classroom, Kanade found a flyer from a white pig mascot from Uka's company inside Yukihira's desk. Yukihira slapped Kanade and ran away screaming with the flyer. Inspired by chocolate, Kanade hatched a plan. Since Yukihira liked the white pig mascot, Kanade decided to dress as the mascot during a holiday. Maybe Yukihira would let her guard down and confess her liking for the mascot, completing Kanade's task. Uka sensed the awkwardness of Kanade's mission and suggested he work as the mascot at an amusement park. Kanade thought only kids would enjoy this, but he actually saw Yukihira at the park taking pictures from a distance. When the children left, Yukihira approached and asked the mascot to spin around, then hugged it, saying the mascot was especially cute today and she couldn't resist. Kanade thought the plan would continue smoothly, but then Yuragi ran over calling for her brother. She didn't recognize Kanade but smelled him. Kanade quickly gestured to mislead her and then ran off with Yukihira, who seemed very happy. The two ended up having a date at the park, leaving Kanade exhausted. Yukihira thanked the white pig mascot today and opened up about her feelings, saying she couldn't discuss them with people she knew. She mentioned being timid since childhood and wanting to connect with others in high school, but failing. The more anxious she got, the more she was seen as weird, often unable to avoid awkward topics. She felt she totally failed at creating a good impression and was eventually regarded as a freak. Kanade sympathized with her plight. However, Yukihira said it was strange that despite her quirks, there was a boy in class who would talk to her. She often lost control of her emotions and lashed out at him, struggling to apologize afterward. She feared that Kanade, the person she wanted to talk to, might reject her true self and never speak to her again if he knew. Overwhelmed, she nearly cried. The mascot, whom Kanade was pretending to be, gently patted her head. Moved, Yukihira hugged the white pig mascot tightly, declaring it her favorite. Kanade's mission progress increased. Suddenly, the system offered a choice: reveal his identity to Yukihira or keep the secret and lose all his accumulated study materials. Caught in a dilemma, Kanade fainted. He was later extracted from the mascot suit by staff, strangely unaware of how he completed the mission. Hoping to check his study materials as a reward, he turned on his computer only to find them gone. It seems Kanade lost his memory and his study materials in the process, making his situation truly unfortunate. Kanade was about to name the team and intended to contact Senior Karasu, but Karasu showed up unexpectedly. Notoriously on the blacklist, Karasu appeared with his head completely bandaged, which prevented him from speaking. Kanade realized that communicating with someone irrational was futile. Despite this, everyone wanted Karasu, as a third-year senior, to be the leader. However, Karasu declined and chose to be the fourth member instead. Kanade chased after Karasu and instead encountered Sira. Kanade remembered that Sira was the last needed for his task progress. Sira, however, refused to confess her liking and told Kanade that such words are reserved for special people. She added that if Kanade wins against someone on the whitelist in the competition, she would confess her feelings. But if Kanade lost, Sarah ominously smiled, suggesting that only God knows what would happen to him. Kanade returned to the classroom and declared himself as the leader, urging everyone to take the upcoming competition seriously. However, his declaration was ignored by everyone. On the day of the competition, many students showed up, mainly to see the 5 people on the whitelist. Duraku, forcibly brought in as the supervising teacher, randomly selected a challenge that tested both teams' acting skills. The first round was between Shishimori, who pretended to be a father returning from fishing, and Yuragi, who forcefully acted as a sickly little sister. Yuragi accused Shishimori of smelling like another woman and dramatically stabbed him with a knife. The scene was too graphic and was cut off by the director. Of course, the knife and fish were not real. It was just their convincing acting that made it seem vivid. Yuragi won the first round. The second match featured Kanagi from the whitelist against Uka from the blacklist in a wrestling match on an oily surface. The childhood friends competed affectionately until Uka, expected to win due to her strength, slipped on oil and accidentally flung her shorts, revealing her pink underwear. This broke Yuragi's composure, and she rushed out of the arena, resulting in Uka's loss due to a lack of fighting spirit. The third match was between Ayame and Yukihira, described as a sadistic beauty with large breasts and a cold girl with a sharp tongue for dirty jokes. The competition tested their ability to nickname each other, essentially assessing their verbal attack skills. Yukihira, known for her strong attacks, quickly made a critical remark by mocking Ayame in English for supposedly using silicone padding. Ayame looked visibly nervous, and Yukihira sensed she had struck a nerve, suggesting she might test Ayame's figure further. Then he reached out and touched Ayame, which unexpectedly made her gasp continuously. However, Yukihira stated that it was real. In the end, Ayame angrily called Yukihira a breast-groping pervert. Due to Yukihira's action, the nickname was acknowledged by everyone present. Therefore, Ayame won. Yukihira told Kanade that she actually won because Ayame now owed her a big favor. It turned out the breasts were indeed padded, but Yukihira understood Ayame's desire to enhance her bust, which is why she let Ayame off. In the fourth match, Karasu ran away. The competition was at risk of being lost until Tuya from the opposing team suggested letting Chocolate participate. The contest was about insulting each other. However, Chocolate didn't understand what insults were. The host explained it as saying things the other person wouldn't like to hear. Chocolate then spoke about how Kanade restricts her from eating at home. The audience was shocked, thinking Kanade was heartless for not feeding such a well-behaved girl. Chocolate ranted for a while, and Tuya conceded, stating he would never insult a girl, not wanting to disappoint his supporters. Wow, what a gentleman, people thought. Now the score was 2-2. The final decision rested on Kanade and Sarah. Sarah was the campus queen, popular among both genders. When it was Kanade's turn, the atmosphere became very awkward. The system popped up a choice box, forcing him to tell a very lame joke on the spot. The scene grew even colder. The contest was decided by rock, paper, scissors. Kanade won unexpectedly, but he never imagined Sarah would confess her liking for him in front of the entire school, expressing a romantic interest and giving him a hug. The students erupted in chaos, but Kanade felt no vibration of completing his task. He realized that due to Karasu's last-minute replacement, Chocolate counted as a participating girl. Sarah, still hugging Kanade tightly, would not let go. Kanade had no choice but to immediately ask Chocolate how she felt about him. Chocolate said she liked Kanade. Kanade successfully completed his task, but he was now infamous as the villain who wronged the campus goddess. After the contest, Kanade felt like a thief going to school, as students got angry upon seeing him. First, the campus goddess, then Sweet Chocolate. What did he do to deserve this? Yukihira's contrasting behavior also began to show more, and Uka was very shy around Kanade due to her second underwear exposure. Meanwhile, Sarah found Kanade and hugged him, causing more gossip among the students. Kanade pulled Sarah aside and asked what she really wanted. Sarah asked if Kanade had ever liked someone. He admitted he was quite popular in middle school and was confessed to by several girls. However, he realized he had only ever been confessed to and had never felt the same about anyone else. Kanade still didn't understand why Sarah pretended to be interested in him. Sarah said she couldn't stand it anymore. The task was supposed to be completed by that child. Confused, Kanade returned to the classroom and found Chocolate daydreaming at her desk. A pop-up appeared, asking him to choose between hugging Chocolate, Yukihira, or Uka. Yukihira was too inconsistent, and Uka, usually fine, seemed off. So, Kanade immediately chose Chocolate. After making his choice, Chocolate suddenly acted shy and suggested they should get to know each other better privately before hugging again. The students were shocked. Their beloved Chocolate had been won over by Kanade. Chocolate then stood up to stop everyone from getting physical and explained that her relationship with Kanade was more than friendship, but was still healthy. Not what everyone thought. Her demeanor made everyone uneasy, as it was very different from the usual clueless Chocolate. Kanade was also curious about what was up with Chocolate, who then revealed she might have regained her memory. She explained that she fell out of bed that morning, hitting her head on the floor, but didn't fully regain her memory until Kanade hugged her. Chocolate apologized for the trouble she had caused Kanade, and said her current behavior reflected her true personality. Yukihira overheard their conversation and mistook it for some role-playing game, getting somewhat angry. Chocolate thought this was just how Yukihira and Kanade interacted. After Yukihira left, Chocolate even expressed jealousy about their close relationship. Later, Chocolate prepared a lavish dinner specifically with Kanade's favorite flavors, insisting on waiting until after Kanade had eaten. Normally a glutton, The now polite Chocolate made Kanade feel awkward. Chocolate explained that as a servant of the gods, she doesn't need to extract nutrients from food, attributing her previous abnormal behavior to her memory loss. Tonight's meal was excessive because it was rare for her to cook for someone, and Kanade felt he shouldn't waste it, stuffing himself. Seeing Kanade struggle, Chocolate offered to help by feeding him, which is typical among couples. Kanade, moved by her pitiful look, couldn't refuse, although the atmosphere was awkward, especially when Chocolate wrapped in a towel came to scrub his back during his bath. Embarrassed, Kanade refused, hurting Chocolate's feelings. He promised they could bathe together next time, which made her agree to leave the bathroom. After the bath, Kanade found Chocolate and asked her about the choice system. Chocolate said she was normal in the divine realm but lost her memory due to an accident, leading to her lazy phase. Then the god issued a mission for Chocolate to go to Kanade's side to lift a curse. However, this god got pregnant due to an illicit affair. Other gods then took over Kanade's mission, and Chocolate was also sent to Kanade's side, where she eventually regained her memory. The major issue escalating the situation was the god who got pregnant from the affair. Now, this unreliable god called the choice system a curse from the gods, but it's unclear which god gave that order. Amidst these disputes, another god has yet to appear. Chocolate expressed her desire to stay with Kanade. After getting his approval, she passionately confessed her feelings and asked Kanade if he wanted the choice system to disappear, suggesting they should be intimate if he did. Kanade knew that Chocolate would not refuse anything he did, but he didn't want to take advantage of her vulnerability. As Kanade struggled with this, a biscuit tin fell from a cupboard, hitting Chocolate on the head. This turned her back into her gluttonous self and made her forget the events of the previous day. Although greedy, this was preferable to her being overly lustful. This familiar, unreliable side of Chocolate regained the class's affection, and those around Kanade returned to normal. However, Sarah found Kanade again and gave him tickets to a swimming pool, looking forward to seeing them swim. At this time, Kanade also received a divine mission to capture a photo of Uka crying in the water world. Kanade caught up with Yukihira leaving and handed her a ticket from Karasu. Teacher Duraku said he would take them there. Yukihira was initially concerned about her swimsuit revealing her body, but she eventually accepted the ticket. Later, Duraku drove Kanade and his friends on mountain roads, and everyone had fun except Yuragi, who was carsick. Kanade remembered the book Chocolate had given him, titled 100 Ways to Make a Girl Cry, and even prepared onion water. Though unethical, he was sorry for Uka but had to fulfill the mission. The choice system then forced Kanade to express his true feelings in the amusement park, or it would physically explode him on the spot. When Kanade was changing in the locker room, the system popped up, forcing him to choose between wearing the smallest human loincloth or going out naked. However, Kanade cleverly wrote smallest human loincloth on his swim trunks, tricking the system. As soon as he came out, the system demanded that he lift Duraku high, who hated when people commented on her height. Despite knowing the risk, Kanade lifted Duraku, but she guessed he was forced by the system and did not plan to blame him. However, uncontrollably, Kanade commented on Duraku's flat chest and was severely beaten by her, which was the system's revenge for his choice earlier in the car. Afterwards, Kanade complimented Uka on her pretty swimsuit while she was drinking coconut juice and reminded her not to stain it. He then had to pick up Yuragi, who insisted on calling him brother. Turning around, he found Chocolate looking at another man's body and fantasizing about Kanade being dominated by male hormones. Kanade was puzzled. Wasn't Chocolate supposed to like him? Why did she always fantasize about him with other men? Chocolate firmly separated right from wrong. Kanade gathered the three together, hoping to help them mature a bit. However, they ended up running around chaotically. Yukihira was also at the water park, but stayed hidden due to her lack of confidence in her body shape. At that time, Kanade was searching for people in the pool when he heard Sarah's familiar voice. Not just Sarah, but Konagi and Ayame had also arrived. The three beauties, with their impressive figures, captured the attention of many boys around. Sarah, knowing Kanade was looking for the other three, asked Ayame and Konagi to help and reminded Kanade not to focus only on finding Uka, but to also look after Chocolate and Yuragi, hinting that haste doesn't bring success. Soon, Kanade and Ayame found Yuragi, who had brainwashed all the males present, planning to reign as the top sister. Ayame declared her intent to let these men know who the real queen was. Kanade remarked that neither of them was normal, which sparked a battle between the commander brother and the queen's minion. The fight was fierce, and Kanade knew this was not his place to stay. However, soon both sides' followers collapsed, and Yuragi and Ayame began fighting with water guns. Initially, Yuragi had the upper hand and did something indescribable to Ayame's chest. Discovering Ayame's chest felt strange, Ayame suddenly overpowered Yuragi, knocking her out with her chest. Seeing the matter resolved, Kanade went looking for Chocolate. He found her judging a male model physique contest and even acting as a judge. She pushed Kanade away when he approached. Kanade left and soon encountered Sarah again, who reminded him to go to the roller coaster where Uka might be, and not to forget about the white cat, warning him not to cheat. Meanwhile, Yukihira felt that Kanade had good relationships with all the girls, but was surprised when she ran into him. Changing from her shy demeanor, she switched back to her sharp-tongued self. Kanade invited her to join the group, but Yukihira decided to head back, saying men couldn't resist any gap they saw, but she blushed as she turned away. Elsewhere, under the roller coaster, Kanade saw Kanagi with weak knees. Uka then jumped out of the pool and asked Kanade to join her on the roller coaster. Kanade said it was only for kids, but Uka didn't give him a chance to refuse and pulled him onto the ride. On the roller coaster, Kanade asked Uka if she wasn't scared of crying. Uka mentioned she used to cry a lot as a child, but hadn't cried since growing up because her mother said a girl's tears are best when she'd in extreme joy in front of someone she loves. However, Kanade was particularly afraid of roller coasters and lost consciousness at the moment of descent. He did not notice that his hand had attacked Uka. Uka was so frightened that she started crying. When Kanade came to his senses, he had already gotten off the roller coaster. He held Uka's hand that she extended to him, noting its softness. However, a system forced him to speak his thoughts aloud. Uka thought he was referring to her chest, became embarrassed, and tearfully ran away. Seeing that his mission was failing, Kanade prepared his ultimate weapon, a water gun filled with onion water. However, the system forced Kanade to choose between spraying himself in the backside or nose. With tears, Kanade chose the latter, and his screams echoed throughout the water park. Sarah shook her head, saying that haste doesn't lead to success. The onion water plan failed. At that time, Yuragi and Chocolate decided to go to the haunted house. Uka's expression changed instantly, saying it was too childish for her. However, Yuragi said it was extremely realistic and had scared many adults away. They forcefully dragged Kanade and Uka there. Yuragi and Chocolate ran off, and Uka grabbed Kanade's hand. Kanade tried to assure her that the props were all fake and not to worry. But then an NPC dressed as a monster appeared, scaring the staff. Panicked, Uka threw Kanade's camera and ran away. Kanade quickly followed her, finding that Uka was becoming somewhat childish and liked to act spoiled around him. She asked Kanade to carry her, and when a ghost appeared, Uka, who was lying on Kanade's back, was scared into tears. At that moment, Kanade reached a fork in the road. He didn't know which way led out, but the system suddenly popped up with options. Option 1, the correct path, would stop Uka from crying immediately. Option 2, still inside the haunted house, would make Uka cry continuously. Kanade sighed. He couldn't let a girl keep crying, so he immediately chose the exit. "You've got away with girls for a reason," Uka thanked Kanade. But as the two were coming down the stairs from the haunted house, Yukihira saw Kanade carrying Uka and ran away with a hurt expression. Meanwhile, Sarah found Chocolate eating ice cream and reminded her that her mission was about to be completed. Chocolate's eyes turned red instantly. Yuragi looked up to find Chocolate had disappeared. At that time, Uka was still clinging to Kanade's back, refusing to get down unless Kanade gave her a princess carry. Kanade could only walk a few steps with trembling legs while carrying Uka, but he accidentally fell to the ground. Uka regained consciousness. Although she didn't understand what had happened, she suddenly began to cry, saying it wasn't a blame on Kanade. She vaguely remembered that Kanade had always been with her, which made her feel very secure. This was the first time Uka had experienced such feelings. At that moment, Sarah came out, handed the camera to Kanade, and told him it was the best opportunity to take photos. Kanade asked Uka if he could take her photo. After Uka agreed, Kanade took a photo of her crying and pulled her up. But this tumultuous scene was witnessed by Chocolate. After the mission, Kanade went to find Chocolate. Chocolate said she felt suffocated and handed a book to Kanade before leaving. Kanade was shocked to hear Chocolate say she had lost her appetite. Sarah arrived inside at Kanade, calling him the most obtuse person in the world. She gave Kanade a hint on how to break the curse, telling him that loving someone would make the choice system in his mind disappear. She warned him that there was no time left. Meanwhile, Yukihira was wondering if boys preferred girls with larger busts when she noticed Chocolate sighing beside her. Yukihira envied the figures of Chocolate and Uka. Chocolate confessed she also envied Yukihira and Uka. She noted how Kanade was always happy with Yukihira and very gentle with Uka, which made her feel suffocated seeing Kanade close to them. After saying this, Chocolate realized her mistake and ran away. Kanade immediately chased after Chocolate, mentioning that Sarah seemed to know about the curse. Unexpectedly, Chocolate confessed her love for Kanade, saying she wanted to marry him. She hugged Kanade tightly, nearly choking him. This confession was witnessed by Yukihira, who arrived with Uka at the scene. The choice system then prompted Kanade to choose one of the three girls to confess to. Confused about his feelings and unwilling to hurt anyone, the system offered a fourth option. Something unexpected would happen in this water park. Kanade chose the fourth option and consulted Duraku, who was also possessed by a system, and looked shocked. Believing a disaster was imminent, Kanade decided to evacuate the water park. He had to cross the pool to reach the broadcast tower, and Chocolate joined him on the boat. They dodged strange people in the river. Reaching the broadcast tower with Chocolate's help, Kanade turned on the broadcast. Chocolate then asked Kanade to confirm his feelings. The entire water park heard Chocolate ask if Kanade disliked her. Kanade responded that he liked her, but not romantically, apologizing for his ambiguous feelings. Chocolate reminded Kanade to turn off the broadcast. Kanade screamed and rushed down just as it started snowing in the water park, and a joyful snowball fight began. Had Kanade not had the choice system in his mind, his life might have been easier. Now he has to tell a risque joke at school daily and endure Yukihira's teasing. Meanwhile, Chocolate tells him about the strange couples she ships at school, trying to get Kanade involved in a threesome. At this moment, Uka brought some gal games, the type where beautiful girls surround a dazed protagonist. Kanade had played these games often. Uka's family company was planning a sequel. However, when Kanade saw that the sequel started with an old lady, he immediately rejected it. "Who has a romance game with an old lady?" he exclaimed. Uka's next idea was to include male characters, which Chocolate thought was very good. Yukihira said that starting a gal game with such a setup was too easy and ridiculous. Kanade disagreed, insisting it was a classic romantic comedy. Just then, the choice system activated, forcing Kanade to enter the game world, or else he would be stuck in those sequels Uka mentioned. Thus, Kanade decided to enter the original gal game. The system stated he couldn't leave until he completed the game. Once inside, Kanade became the protagonist. He met the first main female character, a transfer student. He thought the choice system wouldn't pop up here, but it embarrassed him by making him say a risque joke and then forced him to let the girl touch him by dropping his pants, scaring her away. Kanade sighed, realizing he couldn't pursue her anymore, and decided to look for other main characters. Turning around, he saw a bossy second main character who looked very much like Uka. Kanade intended to help her with some thugs, but when he approached, the thugs became arrogant. The choice system popped up again, making Kanade place a thug's hand on his groin and declare brotherhood, which disgusted the thugs and made them run away. The second character found Kanade interesting, but she wasn't the Uka he knew, nor did it feel like a game world. She resembled Uka not just in looks, but in her outgoing personality. According to the game's script, Kanade could have given her sweets from his bag, but the choice system forced him to pull out 2 pairs of underwear instead. Upon seeing melon-flavored underwear, she beat him up, ending that storyline. Kanade then found himself on the school roof at night, recalling this was the third character's storyline. She was an alien from outer space, but looked and acted much like Yukihira, including her habit of telling risque jokes and then blushing. Kanade thought she was just like Yukihira. He tried to connect with her but ended up getting beaten up, thinking he might not be able to return. Unexpectedly, the story shifted again, and Kanade found himself in a park at dusk, realizing he had entered the fourth route. If the first three characters don't reach a certain level of affection in the original game, it switches to this hidden fourth route to avoid a bad ending. The fourth character, intended to be the protagonist's best friend, undergoes a gender transformation and becomes very cute. But when Kanade turned around, he saw the rugged face of the next-door aunt, now balding. This was the last route, and Kennedy couldn't refuse because he wanted to return to the real world. He thought they would hold hands to conclude the story, but instead the character started with a kiss. Unexpectedly, a beautiful girl resembling Chocolate emerged from the bushes, marking the fifth route. Her speech was exactly like Chocolate's. The choice system then asked Kanade if he wanted all the heroines to transform into their younger versions. Kanade immediately agreed, and soon the rough buddy turned into a pure and attractive young girl. However, Kanade then found himself surrounded by others. Suddenly, Kanade realized that this was the scenario from the original work, where three heroines secretly loved the protagonist, leading to a chaotic scene. The three turned aggressive and prepared to take the protagonist's life. Among them were Uka and Yukihira, whom Kanade recognized. Could it be that these two were also in love with him? Kanade got beaten up and then stabbed by the gender-transformed buddy, leading to a tragic ending. Kanade woke up from this dream and joked with the others about dreaming of them being in love with him. However, such a scenario was impossible. The three immediately became angry. Yukihira punched Kanade, sending him flying. Uka didn't spare him either, and even Chocolate declared that Kanade could only be a buddy for life. The choice system didn't let Kanade off either, ensuring he suffered a severe social defeat.